right, so now that we have our silhouette and our outlines drawn around them, we are going to start painting different values of a color all in between all those lines. Go ahead, if you have on like a scrunchie or anything that you need to take off your wrist, take those off, put your sleeves up before you start painting. And I've started with, I have one of the trays with white on one side and the color I chose. So I'm doing blue, different values of blue. So this is a monochromatic artwork, meaning that we only are going to use one hue or one color, but we will be mixing different values of that color. Now when we mix, we're gonna start off light on the inside and then gradually get darker and darker. So the first thing that we're going to do is paint the first line, or in between the silhouette and the first line, just white. So just get a little bit of paint on your brush and paint that white. Now you might be thinking, well, the paper's white. Why are we painting this part white? The paper is technically white, but it's not as white as our paint is. If you want to leave it the same color as the paper, you can. I'm not gonna get mad at you, but I wanna make it nice and white. I'm being really careful going around my silhouette, really making sure that I don't get paint on it, because we need to keep that silhouette nice and black. So I'm doing a nice even layer, not too much paint. Notice how I don't have any paint on the ferrule or the metal part of my brush. So make sure, yeah, you don't want paint on the metal part of your brush. So be really careful and get that painted white. If you accidentally paint on top of your silhouette, we can wait until it dries and just color whichever part you painted white black. So don't panic. Just try really hard not to. Especially like these little details. I'm probably not even gonna really go into those feather details with my brush, just because I don't want paint to get on it, because if paint gets on it, then they will disappear. So I just kind of went around them instead of in between them. And I don't think anybody will notice. Someone might notice the dog hair that's on my paper, but I can remove that later on also. And that's the hair from, if I'm not mistaken, from my dog that passed away last October. Still finding his hair everywhere, even on my artwork. All right, so I have carefully painted that whole section white. And hopefully that'll kind of get you in the mindset of painting. I will carefully try to get rid of that. There we go. All right, now we're gonna be mixing tint. When we mix a hue or a color plus white, we call that a tint. So the next one we're gonna do is we're gonna add just a little bit of this blue to the white. And I have a little too much white here. What I could do is move it over, some over here, and do it that way, but I'll just get a little bit of blue and mix it into this white. I'm making sure that I still don't get any of that paint on the ferrule. I can go over here, and I'm trying to find a real very light blue, super close to that white. So I have chosen to mix it over here. So it's going to be mostly light, just the lightest tint of blue that we can get. So I'm going to keep adding white until I think it's light enough. So you want it just to be barely a step above white. So barely just a little bit above white. And you can wipe off extra paint. Now we are using tempera paint, so you'll notice it works and mixes differently than watercolor. It's a little bit thicker, but you'll get used to it. All right, now that I think this is some good. I'll get some off the edges, and I'll paint my next section this blue, or this tint. So it's a super light blue. Now, I'm actually thinking that's not quite, it looked a lot lighter when it was in here. So I will add some more white. So this is just, there's no like wrong way to do it. Just use your best judgment and get the right color. So there we go. Each, in between each of those lines that we drew, we are going to be doing a different tint, or eventually we'll get to shades, or most of us will, of the hue that we chose. And we're going to gradually get darker and darker as we go out. So you might have just mixed that perfect tint right away. And if you did, awesome, good for you. If you didn't, you'll get there. If you run out, or I still have this like a little bit darker, so I just mix a little bit more white into it. Try to keep it the same tint. We're trying to keep the paint off the metal. Sometimes it's hard. We use palette knives to mix paint to prevent, so we don't have to worry about like when you're doing it more professionally, so you don't have to worry about getting paint all over the ferrule or the metal part of the brush. But when you are mixing paints with the bristles and the brush like we are for this, you just got to be careful. And you want to try to keep your layer of paint nice and even in between the lines. Kind of reminds me of like go-kart. I don't know why. And I'm almost back to where I started. Just a very, very, very light tint of blue. All right, and like I said before, we're gonna gradually get darker and darker. So I'm gonna get, if you can see, so I mixed, this is what I just did. This is a little bit darker, so I will just use the blue, or the tint I mixed right here for my next one. So you want it to be about a step up each time. As long as they look different, you're good. And I think this is a little bit darker. It might not be quite dark enough, but if it's not, I can mix more. Might just get a touch of that blue in here. So just use your best judgment, really. And after you get that, do your best to keep the whole, in between the next two lines, the whole outline the same tint. So as long as we're adding white to the hue, we still refer to them as tints. When we start adding black eventually, we'll start calling them shades. So nice smooth brush strokes. might go back over it with just a little bit lighter. So we're going to continue this pattern of adding more of our hue to our white and continue mixing a darker and darker tint until eventually it's going to be just blue. That might happen like over here somewhere. Some people you might not even get to that. Your whole thing might just be tints. Some people might get to it a lot quicker than others. Everyone works a little differently. Some people's steps are itty bitty baby steps. Some people's steps are a little bit further apart. There's nothing wrong with that. Just as long as you're gradually getting darker and darker. So our goal is to get to our hue. And I will add just a little bit more blue. To the part I'm mixing in. So I'm basically just mixing all of my colors into this. I'm getting white and blue in here. You can do it that way. You don't have to do it that way. It's whatever works for you. But I'm gonna get just a little bit darker. And keep going.